And welcome to this meeting of Cabinet on the 18th of April 2024. I'll take apologies for absence first, please.
There are no apologies, Leader.
Okay, we'll move then to disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest for any items on the agenda. Yeah, Councillor Gwilym.
Personal interest in item 7.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other interest? Councillor King.
Yeah, personal interest in item 14 as Director of the National Waterfront Museum.
Thank you very much. Councillor Francis Davis.
Item 14, personal and prejudicial as a Director of the Wales National Pool and National Waterfront Museum.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
Similarly, Director of the Wales National Pools, item 14, personal and prejudicial.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further declarations, then we move to item 3, which is minutes of the previous meeting. They're on pages 1 to 6 of the agenda. I've not had any requests for amendments to the minute, but we'll take any if there are any today. If not, I'm happy to move them as a true record. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Lewis. And could I ask you all if you agree with the minutes, please? Thank you very much. That is agreed. Announcements of the Leader of the Council. I have no formal announcements for this morning's meeting. So we'll move to item 5, public question time. So I see we've got a number of members of the public present today, and grateful for the provision of a number of questions from members of the public ahead of the meeting. So my intention today, given that there is significant public interest in item 7, is to allow a little bit extra time for public questions today in order that we get through them. But that is on the basis that we do take the time to ask the questions and not to go into conversation or long statements. I think it's important that the questions are asked and then that the appropriate responses are provided. So again, the question time will be extended, but on that basis, okay? So before we go into public question time, I also think it's important that we give the opportunity for the legal officer just to add some legal context to the item that we're dealing with today, so that both Cabinet and members of the public are clear on what we're dealing with. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the purpose of the report at agenda item 7 is to deal with the responses to the public open space notice, and Cabinet's main consideration will be to balance the adverse consequences of the loss of open space, having regard to the objections received, against the advantages of disposing of the land. Cabinet is not making a decision on the disposal of the land to Skyline today, and the report at agenda item 7 is simply dealing with those objections which deal with the potential impact of the loss of open space. And as far as the content of the report is concerned and the process followed by the Council, I just wish to make the point that we received several representations, including a letter from Richard Buxton solicitors, commenting on the process and the procedure followed. I just want to say, in an open sort of forum, we have responded to Richard Buxton's solicitors. We've taken the issues raised into account and we've responded fully. I'm satisfied that the report and the process followed by the Council are wholly compliant with all relevant legislation and with the Council's procedure rules. Some of the public questions today will touch upon the process, and I will answer those questions which require information of a legal nature or legal considerations. I'll deal with those. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, we'll now move to public questions. And again, whilst the intention is to give verbal answers wherever possible today, we will also follow the responses up with written responses to the people asking the questions. So if we can move to question 1, please, and invite, I think Mr. Houghton is our first questioner today. Mr. Houghton, in terms of the buttons, there's a little hand there and a light should come on, both on your microphone and on the panel.
Brilliant, thank you. Can I clarify that legal letter from the solicitor that they've responded saying that everything's okay? Is that what you said?
the legal process from the solicitor, you said that everything was okay and followed the procedures correctly.
Yes,
Okay.
we've had the response. We've had a letter from Richard Buxton solicitors raising a number of issues around the process followed. I've responded to that, and I'm satisfied, yes, the process has been followed correctly.
Okay, so they haven't responded to you saying they're happy. You
They've acknowledged the response that I've sent them,
Okay.
and they the only clarification they wanted today was that the meeting would be broadcast and they'd be able to deal with the matter, I'm assuming, after cabinets.
Okay, and can I clarify that when it says on the report the decision in principle, does that mean the cabinet, if they agree that everything's followed properly, the council can then move forward with their idea because you've agreed in principle the disposal is okay? Is that correct as well?
I think if you stick to your questions today, we'll
Yeah.
deal with that, and I'll deal with the issue of what an in-principle decision means. But
Okay.
if you proceed with the questions,
It's quite
otherwise we're
pertinent
at
to the
risk
question,
of,
but thank you.
of,
Yeah, I'll look away.
not dealing with them all.
Okay, Mr. Houghton, question 1, please.
Okay. In light of the overwhelming public objections of 265 and 267 responses in total, leaving only 2 against, the percentage of objections to this is obviously very high. The proposed disposal of Kilvey Hill is given the statutory obligations under the Wellbeings Act of the Future Generations Act of 2015. Can the council clarify how the decisions to the disposal of this land reflects the genuine surplus to requirement? Oh, sorry, am I too close? Sorry. Sorry. Did everyone hear that properly, or should I start again? Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Is not surplus to requirement. Additionally, how does the council justify proceeding despite significant public concerns indicating the hill serves as a critical community and an environmental asset? I provided evidence for this question as a picture of hundreds of people on the hill, and also all of the aerial photo of all the tracks that are used for free roaming through the open access land, not open access spaces. I've provided an evidential video of basically the community use of the hill. I've also supplied a survey that was done randomly from around in the community. So in your statement saying that people are outside from the county, this survey is highly Swansea orientated, and a
Mr.
Welsh
Houghton.
Government petition of 3,000
Yep.
people. I've also supplied evidence saying that 28% of people support leisure for council tax money, and 42% of people for council tax money spent on open spaces, showing that there is an interest in protecting open spaces. Second question.
Mr. Houghton, if you pause there, please.
Yeah.
So I'll call the legal officer in to respond to question 1, and I'll
Okay.
come back to you for question. Remind you, the extension of question time is on the basis that you stick to the questions and don't make supplementary statements. The information that you provided in your questions, which includes the information you just had, has been circulated to all cabinet members, so they are fully aware of the additional information. So again,
Okay.
I would advise you to stick to the questions in order that I can extend question time.
Okay, sorry, I was just listing the evidence, but okay, I heard you. Thank you.
Would you mind switching off your microphone just for a second while I respond, and then you can come in with question 2. Yes, Ms. Houghton, I'm going to pick up on the main point that you make in question number 1 is the use of surplus or underused land. So that the council does not accept that the land transaction procedure rules only permit the disposal of land that is surplus or underused. Rule 3 of the procedure rules sets out the criteria according to which the council will determine if land is surplus or underused. But Rule 4 sets out how land may be identified for disposal. And in particular, Rule 4.1 identifies 5 ways in which land might be identified for disposal. And Rule 4 does not at any point state that land may only be disposed of if it's surplus or underused. 4 of the ways detailed in the procedure rules involve a review or analysis of whether the land is surplus or underused. But the 5th way is whether is through a direct property inquiry for the council. Sorry, to the council. So the identification of surplus or underused land is therefore not relevant where the proposed disposal originates as a result of a direct property inquiry to the council. So that fifth way of identifying land is through a direct response, as a direct inquiry to the council. And that's what's occurred in this case, where the council has received an approach directly from Skyline. So the reference to underused and surplus land is not relevant to this transaction.
Okay, Mr. Houghton, question 2, please. Mr. Houghton, question 2, please.
Okay. I don't agree with the complete answer to that. I do understand some of the points you've made, but I don't agree. Question 2, considering the integrated assessment assessment acknowledges that the initial assessment were limited and a full report would be needed later, why is there such a rush to approve the disposal in principle, which obviously you're going to describe later, without the comprehensive assessment of the long-term environment and social legal impacts? How does the decision align with the council's duty to ensure sustainable development and conscientious consideration of the consultation of the responses outlined by the Gunnings report? I mean, if you actually look at the evidence that's compiled for you to read, it's in black and white. So it doesn't actually show the full context of what the actual stuff is for you to even read through for a start.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houghton. I'll again call the Chief Legal Officer in to give you a response.
The report to date, agenda item number 7, is seeking an in-principle decision to dispose of the land and is concerned only with dealing with the responses to the public open space notice. It's perfectly lawful to deal with the matter in a two-stage process and having an in-principle decision dealing with the open space first and then dealing with the disposal itself at a later date. It may be that that disposal doesn't take place or takes place sometime in the future, but it's perfectly lawful to deal with it in a two-stage process. Any potential future disposal will be the subject of a further detailed report to Cabinet and will have the benefit of a further IIA report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houghton. We'll move to question 3, please. And again, I believe it's one of your questions.
So in the evidence that I provided that I thought was being read in response to the question, you've ticked the assessment boxes with no's. There's no impact, but we quite clearly see there is. So that was kind of what I'm saying, is it's not a complete report. You're saying a two-stage process is fine, but I don't mention anything about two-stage process in my question.
Mr. Houghton, understand you want to make comments on the answers you received. As the
Okay,
legal
yeah,
officer,
I'll move on.
apologies, as the legal officer has said, this is an in-principle decision, and legal officers alluded to the fact.
I understand it's an in-principle decision.
Okay.
I was after clarity. I haven't got that, but the question wasn't answered how I asked it. So that would be.
I understand. So I'll just remind you again. The debate is not the point of question time.
No, I'll move on. I have heard you. I will move on.
Question 3, please.
Yeah. Given the statutory requirement conducted by robust public consultation under Local Government Act and the well-being of future generations, how does the council explain the lack of proactive engagement with public meeting, particularly when significant community concerns have been raised? How does this approach ensure stakeholders' views continuously considered, especially those from potentially disadvantaged, less vocal community members? I mean, i.e., we actually asked for a public meeting and we were refused recently.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. I'll take this one. You'll be aware that there have been a number of engagements undertaken by Skyline.
Yes, Skyline. This is a disposal order, not to do with planning, and you can't predetermine planning, so you can't really bring up planning.
Mr. Houghton, again, if you want me to close question time at 10 minutes, I will do so. I'm attempting to answer all of your questions. I and others will sit quietly while you ask the questions. I expect the same respect when I'm answering it. So, as I was saying, Skyline undertook a number of public engagements since March last year. A number of other meetings have taken place with members of the community. I'll remind you that this is a private development, private sector initiative being taken forward. There is also a live planning application present at the moment, which allows members of the public to provide comments into that planning application. And again, there have been numerous meetings of Cabinet, which you and others have attended, where you've had the opportunity to engage. So there have been numerous opportunities to do so. My understanding from the private, from Skyline's own engagements was that the sessions were very well attended and that there was a largely positive response to those sessions. We will, of course, in our written response, provide you with the detail of the sessions that have taken place.
Okay, brilliant. 118 turned up to their consultation, 265 have responded. So brilliant. You can definitely confirm that the respondents to your objections are a large amount of number above Skyline. So I'm happy that you understand that.
Mr. Houghton, final warning. Any further debate will be met with closure of public question time.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was just confirming your conversation. Thank you. Question 4. Under the Localism Act, communities are granted the rights for nominated buildings of land and assets of community value, as alluded to in a previous question. And to be given the fair chance to bid and buy assets, especially when there are public assets of open spaces, not open access land, which is a definition that's been lost in your report. The community interest, given the significant community interest and the reliance on Kilvey Hill for the recreation environment purpose, has the council considered offered the land to a local community for management, therefore proceeding the commercial disposal? If not, why? The option has not been explored, especially in light of the strong community opposition as recognised and the potential benefits of the community mentioned and highlighting the community response.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. I'll call again the legal officer in to answer that point.
Thank you. Again, the report at item 7 is seeking an in-principle decision to dispose of the land and is concerned only with the dealing with the responses to the public open space notice. If in the future the council decides to proceed with the disposal, then the council is able to dispose of the land in any manner it wishes, provided that it obtains the best consideration reasonably obtainable. A community asset transfer would provide little consideration to the council in comparison with a commercial disposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Houghton, we'll move to question 5, please.
The Cabinet report, as I just alluded to, seems misleading and misinterpreting and concerning types of land designations under the Crow Act as open access land. The report seems to confuse publicly owned open access spaces, which includes land owned by the council, managed by National Resource Wales, and private land is accessible under the Crow Act. This misclassification could mislead the public about the actual amount of publicly owned land being proposed for disposal to Skyline Developments. Moreover, the Cabinet report, the map provided appears to be inaccurately and despite concern of the area of, inaccurately depict certain areas of the private land as open access areas, not open access land under the Countryside Rights Act, and some of the land is not even covered by any of these designations. In the Cabinet report, the map provided appears to be inaccurate. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading over it. This is a misinterpretation and raises concerns about the accuracy of the data being provided to inform the public and the council's decisions through this report. The council has clearly issues in their mapping, and moreover, can the council proceed with a disposal when the essential environmental assessment, including noise impacts, the effects on the facilities such as the luge and the bar have not been comprehensively addressed in the documents? Again, there is evidence that I can't talk about.
Thank you. But Mr. Houghton, the evidence that you provided with the written question has been viewed, so you know that has been taken into account. I'll call Mr. Richards, one of the lead technical officers on the scheme, to give a response.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, in order to address the public open space notice today, I can confirm that all the areas of the land contained within that green line, the council has a legal interest in, and so it has fulfilled its duties under the Act and in accordance with the plan.
Thank you,
Did
Mr.
you-
Richards.
Did you see the map highlighted saying 10% of open spaces, open spaces mean publicly owned land that has recreational use. So that map misleads people. It's not a public, it's not an interest. You stated open access spaces 10%, 90% is left. It's not true. End of story.
Mr. Richards, anything to add?
Sorry, we disagree, and we believe that what is represented in the plan today is actually correct. And as the chair said, we will follow up in a.
Can you give a legal definition of the word open access space then?
Mr. Houghton, the officer has highlighted the fact that the response he's given, he believes is accurate and correct.
Okay.
We will obviously follow that up in writing.
Okay,
And obviously we'll have
brilliant, yeah.
further opportunities to ask supplementary questions when we return to this item in due course. Mr.
Okay,
Houghton,
thank
do you
you.
want to ask question 6?
Thank you. In the cabinet report, it appears that, oh no, sorry, I'm just doing it again. Question 6. I'm under the impression that another member of the public is asking question 6. Is that correct?
Okay, I haven't been notified that somebody else was going to ask question 6, but
No, someone asking the same question. Is that correct?
yeah. So the other question that came in, I believe the questioner has
From Janet.
has said that they do not wish to have the question asked on their behalf in council, but they happy for response if it's the same person.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll ask the question. Sorry, thank you. Questions. So FR1 dispute. First registration of land. I'm under the impression that the evidence of the cabinet report does not directly mention FR1 land. The registration dispute. If there is no mention of resolving the existing land registration disputes in the report, this could underscore your point about unresolved legal uncertainties affecting the disposal process. How does you take this into account with it being missing from the cabinet report as a crucial thing to be judged on? You can't obviously get rid of assets if there's legal cost to the public involved and uncertainty.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. I'll again call the Chief Legal Officer in to respond.
Mr. Houghton, the existence of a land registration dispute doesn't prevent the council from proceeding with consideration of this report for an in-principle decision on disposal when the subsequent part of the two-stage process that I mentioned to you earlier, when the disposal comes for consideration at a later date, then all land interests at that stage would have to be clarified and certain. But at this point, it's an in-principle decision just dealing with the responses to the public open space notice. There's no constraint on the Cabinet's ability to deal with the matter today.
Thank you.
But that was mentioned in
Mr.
the
Houghton?
objection, so surely it should be brought up into the report for consideration.
Mr. Houghton, you've asked the question. You've had a full response to that question. You may disagree with the response, but that is the response. Thank you very much for your question. I could ask you if you could turn your mic off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that concludes public question time for today. We'll now move to the agenda items, and first on the agenda is the public space notification, item 7, and I'll go. Sorry, councillor question time first. Apologies. I don't see any councillors visible who will ask a question. Okay, thank you. So therefore we'll move then to item 7, which is the public notice. Councillor Francis Davis.
Thank you, Leader. The report today is the public open space notice publicising the proposed disposal of public open space land at Kilvey Hill. You see the purpose is to seek approval in principle to the disposal of land designated as public open space at Kilvey Hill, Swansea, by way of a commercial lease to Skyline Swansea Limited. The recommendations that are in the report. I'd like to thank the officers, Howard French, Ben Smith, Debbie Smith and Rhian Miller for putting this together. There's a lot of technical and legal input into this document. And so therefore I would ask Mr. Lee Richards to give some background to the report so that everybody clearly understands the content of this. I'm sure everybody's read it in detail, but I think it's important, especially due to the light of question time and the questions. And in fact, I welcome the question time because it does actually make everybody consider the questions that have been put and the responses that have been made.
Thank you, Mr. Francis Davis. Just before I bring Mr. Richards in, could I ask members of the public to either take their seats or to leave the chamber? We've seen your placards. You're more than welcome to sit in the public gallery and hold the placards if you wish. There's no issue with that. But if you could either seat or leave, that would be appropriate. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to Mr. Richards to take us through the report. Technical details, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Francis Davis. A bit of background to the report, just taking you through. So the council received an approach from Skyline Enterprises Limited in 2017 to create a leisure facility on Kilvey Hill. The council is proposing to let the land to Skyline Limited on a commercial lease to facilitate the development at Kilvey Hill. Skyline is an experienced operator with established track record internationally, and the Swansea project will be the first of its kind in Europe. To facilitate Skyline proposal and bringing forward the scheme, Skyline will require a legal interest in land as been described today. Most of the land disposals are covered by the council's land transaction rules under section 5, and the council is required under section 123 to advertise the disposal by way of a public open space notice in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. And I can confirm that formal public open space notice was published in the South Wales Evening Post on the 15th and 22nd of January 2014, along with notices placed on site at the Civic Centre and on the council's website, and a period of consultation period commenced on the 15th to the 5th of February 2024. Council should be and members be fully consider the detail of the comments associated with the background papers that you have all seen, and in summary has been pointed out today, 267 responses were received with 265 expressing objections and 2 in favour of the proposals. What we're trying to do moving forward is try to assist members in categorizing the responses that we've received at a very high level categorization, which is within the report, and that includes loss of habitat, social community space, etc., as set out. What I'd like to do now, if I may, is just take you through some of those main headings and the points which have been brought up by members of the public and the mitigation measures to direct you into where these responses may be seen, visible, and you've got full consideration to make your decision moving forward. So turning to the loss of habitat, nature and environmental concerns, this was obviously of concern to members of the general public. And as you will see within the report, there's a number of items there. One of the deepest concerns was, of course, the loss of habitat and green space. And what we would say is that I can direct members through the report to the planning, that Skyline itself has provided details as part of the planning application submission for the loss of habitat and mitigation and in ecology. And under the ecology appraisal, which forms part of the planning application on page 87, it believes that the overall subject to implement the proposed mitigation is capable of compliance with the relevant planning policy and has potential to deliver net benefits in biodiversity. Again, it's not the purpose of this this forum to discuss the planning application, but I will refer you throughout the report to the various end sections of each category, which says in particular this section will be considered as part of the planning application process, which, as you're aware, is currently live, and members of the public still have an opportunity to provide any comments that they wish to make up until that the committee is considered. Turning to social and community concerns, there is a list again of items that we've summarised that come forward from the responses that we received. One of the concerns, or many of the concerns of the respondents, felt that the hill is free for people to enjoy and free from obstruction and the need to pay. If the Skyline proposal does go ahead, I just want to remind that the hill facility will only take a small proportion of the hill. A much larger proportion will remain for people to enjoy freely. These are free and unhindered, and I can just confirm that they will not be fenced off, but there will be obviously areas of operation that will be fenced for security and safety reasons. Skyline's obviously proposing as well as part of this that if the free and unhindered access to the hill will remain, and that includes permeability through elements of the proposal coming forward by Skyline. Equally, visitors to the hill, they do not have to use the gondola, they can continue to walk, and they will have free use of the facilities on the hill, including toilets, the viewing areas, paths, and as come out of the consultation, the children's play area has been created as a linear park that is again free for people to use. The Skyline proposal equally will create jobs and when operational, but also in the construction phase. And I'd refer members to paragraph 2927, which has broadly highlighted the benefits of the direct and indirect jobs being created through the construction and the indirect processes thereafter. And of course, in balancing the proposal, members will be aware that the Skyline proposal could become part of a much bigger repurposing of the Havard Morva Copper Works, which is a unique leisure destination that will encourage more tourism, encourage new business growth, and lead to more jobs and opportunities for local people. The Skyline project itself, if it goes forward, will bring economic growth to the area. And from a tourism perspective, it would reinforce Swansea's reputation as a world-class destination. So again, just a reminder that the broad concerns raised in this category will also be dealt with as part of the planning application moving forward. If I may now turn to the loss of recreation and habitat space, again, there's a list there of summarising the responses that were received, and respondents were concerned about the loss of recreational space. And just to remind that circa 90% of the hill within the plan shown will remain for public access. And as I've mentioned earlier, even the 10% of the development proposed by Skyline itself will be accessible free of charge through the permeable elements. Importantly, it's worth mentioning as well that for able-bodied persons at the moment, Skyline is a bit of a trek, but one of the principals at Skyline has a disability that restricts his mobility, so access is very, very important to Skyline. And as part of this proposal, it will enable members of the public who are unable to get to the top of the hill by their own means to use the gondola to do so, so retaining that access for all. For health and well-being, there's concerns and responses regarding access to local green space, mental health issues, and respondents and concerns about being able to still use the hill for recreation activities, walking, exercise, etc. The land that Skyline will require for the hill facility will be open and accessible to the public, except, as I said, for a small area that'll be bounded for operational use. So areas and access to the Green Man, to the Roundhouse will be and continue and will be uninterrupted as part of the proposal moving forward. Skyline, I've also listed through the consultation to upgrade existing paths, introduction of bridleways on the hill, and as I've said, a linear park which is free for use in all weathers by the local public as well. So again, these broad concerns are all part of the planning application and the reports, and there are links within the report that direct you to the various reports coming forward. Sustainability, one of the categories there, so a number of concerns raised on carving up the natural hill, the carbon footprint, and residents felt that the proposed developments' environmental impacts outweighed its economic benefits, and also that concerns around sustainability, climate change, to stem from the fact of loss of habitat. As part of the planning application, Skyline have provided mitigation measures to reduce the development's impact, and over time, with the proposed replanting, it's hoped that habitat will return. It's widely agreed that by science that climate change in most part is causing the burning of fossil fuels, which does include the combustion engine. And in the report at paragraph 2954, there are links to access and transport statements regarding that you will be aware of. Again, I would also refer members to the link of the travel submitted plans, as I've mentioned, and equally the council, along with Welsh Government and other key stakeholders, looking at ways, obviously, to improve the public transport network and reduce the impact on climate change and the greening of our city. And as is seen in the report, the Swansea and Bay and West Wales Metro looking to create the new railway station at Landor and various connections throughout the city. And that will also include trials of a hydrogen fuel bus cell and the additional rail services to and from Swansea. So not looking just at sustainability, but also resilience in travel also. Again, just advising members, the concerns raised by members of the public will be considered as part of the planning application and the transport assessments moving forward. Turning to the category of pollution and flooding concerns and representations regarding noise, light, increased traffic. Skyline has already considered many of these concerns as part of its planning application, and within the report at paragraph 2962, there are links to those assessments for you to consider also. Importantly, should the Skyline project proceed, once on site, there are various pieces of legislation that and policies in place for Skyline as the developer and main contractor to adhere to. If they do not adhere to them, they themselves will be open to prosecution, and as a local authority, obviously, we will be managing that process. Respondents also noted concerns about water runoff. Again, this is something that will be considered as part of the planning application, and the various reports, as I said, are within the planning application moving forward, and there are links to those reports within this document. Turning to the economic viability and longevity concerns, number of questions were raised about the commercial viability of the scheme and reference to the previous ski run in the Morver area. To protect the council against the aforementioned and other such eventualities, the proposed commercial leases will need to robustly deal with such matters. And as was outlined by my colleague, this will be a part of a follow-up report that will follow in due course on the commercial deal moving forward. You'll also note that some respondents suggested that the Skyline attraction will be seasonal. We do not believe this is the case. The attraction is an all-round, all-weather attraction. Some respondents also felt that the predicted visitor numbers will be lower than those predicted. Skyline suggests otherwise, based on their existing models of elsewhere in the country, and that will be considered as part of, as I said, the further report moving forward. So again, the broad concerns within the context of this report are being dealt with by the planning application and being referred to with the links within the report also. Safety concerns were mentioned, and respondents are genuine concerns around the safety of landslides after construction. In Skyline's planning application, it has submitted a geotechnical study by RSK Geotechnical Science, and this information will be used to provide data and information and subsequently engineering and construction documents to enable the construction of the site moving forward and maintenance and management afterwards. Skyline have also provided a statement, which you can see in 2985, that they'll be employing a suitably qualified earthwork contractor who will manage the materials on site, slippage, and identify those areas. Again, these elements will be managed under the contract with Skyline as part of their process should the scheme move forward. And in terms of the construction phase, a number of concerns were raised about the transport management during the construction phase, and I'd refer you to the transport statement, which notes that the traffic associated with development will not have a significant impact. Again, this will form and be considered by the Highways Department as part of the live application, which is currently being considered. Turning to visual concerns, category. Number of concerns that the scheme would be a blot on the landscape, an eyesore, loss of natural beauty. So much of the area, Piper the Hill, will be regreened following the earthworks, and there are also reports that address this at this point, which I refer to 2993. Equally, you're subject, not everybody agrees that a blot on the landscape could be, well, some people see it as a blot on the landscape, others see it as progressive and bold. But the Local Planning Authority will consider this again, as well as various vision aspects and controls when it considers the application moving forward. And again, as I've mentioned, throughout this consideration of this in particular will be picked up by the planning consent as part of its due consideration. Turning to planning and the category of planning, there were concerns regarding the loss and that the scheme was at odds with policies, and these concerns are quite specific to the planning process and will be dealt with as part of the planning application moving forward. And has been picked up by the chair earlier as part of the Skyline, who I would just re-emphasize, this is a private development. It is not a council development. They've undertaken a pre-consultation consultation process, which took place on the 7th to 10th. And equally, there were numerous consultation processes that took place prior to that. And we are aware that Skyline have equally met with members of the public and individuals following that to answer any questions that they have. And out of the pack there, which is the pre-application application, all the questions raised by members of the public have been addressed and form part of the planning application, which again is referenced to within the report. It's also worth saying in regard to the public open space notice, which has been mentioned at the outset and throughout, that the council legally only needs to publicise the notice in the local newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. The council has gone beyond that and its legal requirement, in that we have placed notices on the council website, on the notices at the entrance to the civic centre. Notices have been placed at prominent locations all across Kilvey Hill, and a specific email has been set up for people to respond to. Finally, on the categories, on statutory concerns, many residents believe that the proposed development by Skyline will remove some of the legal rights that they presently have on the hill, but will be in contradiction to policy. I would just refer you to paragraphs 2911.5 to 2911.7, which state that the planning authority, in determining the Skyline application, will consider the legal legislation and policies, and equally the council will seek additional legal advice throughout the process prior to the potential disposal of the land. Cabinet, as we're aware, must have regard to the emerging themes which are contained within this report, published in the Public Open Space Notice. And I've just remind that a full copy of the redacted responses and the consultations are in your background papers today. And I could turn then briefly to the integrated assessment has been raised previously. The council is subject to, under the Equalities Act, Future Generations Act, and our integrated impact assessment. And in relation to today's report on public open space, these items, we believe, are limited through the screening which has taken place. The report is seeking Cabinet to consider the responses received through the public open space notices and approve in principle the land disposal. And then, as I've mentioned, a further Cabinet report will follow, seeking authority of the proposed land disposal, and a full impacts assessment will be assessed as part of the process and the next stages. There are no legal financial implications relevant to this report, and in terms of the legal implications as stated, the key issue for council, having regard to the objections received against the advantages of disposal of the land as I have set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Richards, for that extensive run through and consideration of all of the points made by members of the public. I think it's exceptionally important that we recognise there are genuine concerns held by the public in any development, especially one of this scale, and that is not to dismiss those concerns because some are genuinely held. But what is also clear within the comments that have come in is that there was a belief that some of the proposals would entirely limit or extinguish access to the hill, which is not correct, and would take up a far larger part of the hill than has been described. Again, in terms of the map on page 14 of the agenda, 2.9.33. Again, that map does exclude an area of private land to the bottom, which obviously will be corrected in terms of the report when it comes back to Cabinet for its final decision. As a matter of clarity, that doesn't affect the overall proposals for the development, and the area mapped out for Skyline is absolutely correct within the map, but we'll add that a little bit of extra information in, and again that has been referenced as part of the discussions today, but changes none of the information provided by Mr. Richards. Again, in terms of today, just to say, I'll come back now to Councillor Francis Davis to make any further comments or to move the report, please.
Firstly, can I thank Mr. Richards for the very full report that he's given us, and the officers for putting this report together in my name. I'd like to move the recommendations that are in there. Recommendation 1, and for no ambiguity, I will read them out. That Cabinet considers responses from the public open space consultation process, which was conducted in accordance with the public open space legislation, in particular Section 123 of the Local Government Act of 1972, for the disposal of land identified in Appendix A, Public Open Space Notice Plan. A full copy of the responses received from the consultation process that either support, object, or provide a neutral comment have been provided in the background papers. And recommendation 2, if Cabinet approves in principle the proposed disposal of land on Kilvey Hill to Skyline Swansea Limited, having considered responses of the public open space notice, then Cabinet agrees that a further report will be received by Cabinet in due course, detailing the terms of the proposed disposal, which will be by way of a commercial lease for consideration and decision. Leader, I so move.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I ask for a seconder, please?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Could I just put on record that I have read the report today. I've looked at the consultation documents, and I have, come in with an open mind today, because I know we have discussed Skyline on several occasions. So today I've made a balanced view on what is before us, look at the consultation documents, and is that way that I would like to formally second the report for us today, particularly on the point of in principle, and I'm more than happy to endorse officers in fairness. I've supplied us with a lot of information here today, so more than happy just to formally second.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I bring anybody else in, I'll just summarise, because Councillor Hopkins made an important point there. Again, Cabinet in the run-up to this meeting have been asked to ensure that they've read the report, which I know members have, that you've looked at the responses in detail of the responses that came in, and I know both electronic copies and physical copies have been available to Cabinet to look through, and all Cabinet have confirmed they've done that. And obviously we've had recent legal letters in that have been circulated to Cabinet, and also the response that the Chief Legal Officer referenced earlier has also been circulated to Cabinet. So again, just to confirm, we've all had that information, and obviously all have listened to Mr. Richards' advice today. So again, just in summary, we've carefully considered the objections that have been received and the implications and potential disposal will have on the loss of open space. We have also considered the benefits that could be achieved by the disposal of the land. And in particular, we've considered if and how any potential adverse consequences of the loss of open space can be mitigated. And Mr. Richards again went into lots of detail about that. So I think just to remind you again, I've just on the advice of officers, just to clarify in terms of section 2.9.33, there's a slight amendment there, just to draw everyone's attention to, in that we have a circa figure in there which relates to the map. The map will include in the final version the private land elements, which are not visible on the map at the present, and obviously the circa numbers will then be amended accordingly. So with that slight amendment, again, I would ask members, therefore, as we've had the report moved and seconded, to consider going to the vote. And you are being asked today to say whether you're satisfied that the advantages of disposal, in our opinion, outweigh the disadvantages of the loss of open space, and that the impacts of that loss can be largely mitigated as outlined by Mr. Richards. I'll pause there before the vote in case anybody wants to make any further comments or have any further questions. But if not, again, therefore, we will go to the vote. Can I ask for all those in favour, please, to show? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much for that item. And again, thank you to members of the public for the submission of their questions and for staying through the debate today. And hopefully it was a useful run through of the issues. We'll now move to item 8, which is future plans for special schools in Swansea. And I'll go to Councillor Smith, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This report presents the outcomes of the consultation on future plans for special schools in Swansea. And as the report outlines, there were no objections received to what was put forward. This is an important stage in our ability to deliver a combined special school as from September 2025, and then moving forward to a new purpose-built school, which will, with excellent facilities, that will enable us to continue to build on what's been achieved in the past and move to a new era in how we meet the needs of some of the most vulnerable learners we have in Swansea, and indeed to cater for more of Swansea's learners here in Swansea. So it gives me great pleasure to formally move the report, and I would urge members to support the Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith, for that and for moving the report. A really positive report in terms of future plans for some of our most vulnerable learners. Could I ask for a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Councillor Smith? If not, we'll go to the vote. Could you show if you're in favour of the report, please? Thank you very much. That is carried. We'll move then to item 9, which is the antisocial behaviour scrutiny inquiry and the response from the Cabinet member with the action plan. Councillor Anthony, please.
Thanks, Leader. This report today has come from a scrutiny panel, which I need to thank Councillor Terry Hennigan, who is the chair, and all of the panel, because a huge amount of work went into this report over a sort of period of about a year. And I would like to, lay on record the amount of work that all the officers and partner agencies have put into this, because around the table, it wasn't just cabinet, there was obviously the community safety, community cohesion team, housing played a vital role in this all the way through it. The police were always there. This was really good partnership working around that table. It was a full house. So the response to there was a lot of recommendations, and I'm right, so it was a big inquiry, the ASB inquiry, and the response has been co-produced and an action plan drawn up to address. And you'll see in the report 24 recommendations have been laid before you today. Some have been partially agreed, but the majority have been agreed. Number 1 or 2, number 14, are not agreed, but we can't influence like national policies of the police. So like a 101 call service and that, this can't have that influence on, even though we could address issues. So there's only a limit to what we could actually do. But number 17, obviously also not agreed in regards to more youth workers at the moment, for the simple reason 2022 seen a large review of the service and a remodelling, and that needs time really to sort of bed in and to look at whether the service does actually need more. So it's not something at the moment that has been agreed. You will see that so much of the work has already been carried out to tackle antisocial behaviour. We have a very small community safety and cohesion team, but they work really, really well with colleagues to try and change the narrative, especially within our schools. There's a huge amount of work goes on with the youth services, Flip the Streets, and all different sort of work within education as well. As Lee Cabinet member on the Safer Swansea partnership, because 5 of the 6 priorities sit with me, I can assure everyone that together we are reviewing our ways of working and to improve our addressing our concerns raised via the partnership. We're really looking to bring housing into the Safer Swansea partnership, so that we're all there, when working together, at all levels, not just within the council and locally, so that the partnership has a better overview. And, a key recommendation is that the Police and Crime Commissioner provide funding on a 3-year basis to allow for medium-term planning, because it's very difficult to set things up and then not know if it could continue the next year and everything. We're also looking to sort of co-work to actually be based together, and that's all got to come through, and to see if possible, to see if these things can happen, because I think that is the right way of working, and then the right response can be given at the right time. So, and that will improve efficiency. So we're in the early days of all that, but I just want to thank everyone for the work that's gone into the report. And there's, as you can see, lots of recommendations and lots of positive responses in there. So I think it can only improve things going forward. So I would like to recommend the report for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Anthony, for that. And can I place on record as well my thanks to the work that you've been doing to lead the work around antisocial behaviour, also your engagements with the police and other agencies from both an antisocial behaviour and a poverty perspective. And again, you should be commended for that work for yourself and the other Cabinet members involved in that initiative. I'll then ask for somebody to second, please. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to Councillor Anthony for all the work that she's been doing on this agenda. I'd also like to add my thanks to Councillor Hennigan. I think I agree. I think this is probably the biggest piece of scrutiny work I have ever seen. And my thanks for the inclusion of housing in that piece of work. And I know we had some excellent contributions from housing associations as well. I'm aware that on the ground, housing have a really strong partnership working with the police, particularly in terms of antisocial behaviour, formalising that relationship through the Safer Swansea partnership seems the right thing to do, but there is some excellent work ongoing. For me, it was very interesting to see the differences between the antisocial behaviour generally and then housing antisocial behaviour was very much around noise disturbance and neighbour disputes. So a different kind of level, but nevertheless just as important. So my thanks to all involved, and I'm sure housing will look forward to working more closely going forward in terms of tackling antisocial behaviour from a housing perspective.
Thank you very much. Are there any other cabinet members who wish to comment? If not, again, add to, sorry, Councillor Gwilliam, yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to add as well about the amount of public participation as well within this piece of work, and a lot has come out of it. There's a lot of really excellent work that's being undertaken, and it's already commencing. And we've worked with our young people, children and young people, and also our older generation, and there's a fantastic piece of work that's happening currently around afternoon teen, which came from young people, and they're really breaking down the barriers and intergenerational work, which is really having a significant positive impact on our residents. So I'd just like to thank the young people who gave up their time, but also other members of the public who were great participants in this piece of work and were really motivated and want to change the narrative and to make the lives of our residents much better. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Gwilliam. And you'll know at the recent scrutiny meeting, I expressed my displeasure and concern and frustration at the fact that recent reports around High Street had completely ignored all of the exceptional work that's going on, not just by teams in the council, but with our partner organisations, members of the community, volunteers, others. And, that work needs to be acknowledged because whilst, like every other city, we have challenges, we have really strong programmes trying to address those challenges and people dedicated to trying to improve the lives of people across the city. So absolutely agree with that. And again, as has been mentioned by both all cabinet members this morning, my thanks to the scrutiny committee for their work on this. It has been a very substantial piece of work. So the report has been moved and seconded. Again, if I can come to cabinet to ask if you can show if you approve of the report, please. Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move now to the risk management framework and policy. Okay, let me just find the right page, a second. It's on page 101. Thank you very much. Apologies, my iPad's gone into closure mode. Okay, so this report sets out the Council's revised risk management policy and framework. This is, I believe, been seen recently by Governance and Audit Committee. And again, they are very supportive of the changes made to strengthen the risk management arrangements that the Council has, both at corporate levels and lower levels of the organisation. Again, it's a vast improvement, I think, in terms of clarity, but also in terms of that active management of potential risks. And again, I've got nothing really to add to the body of the report, which is self-explanatory. You've got the risk management policy attached there at page 110. But the only recommendation for today is on page 101, which is for us to accept that revised management policy. So very happy to move. I'll look to members for a second, please.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to second the report and absolutely agree with your comments that the system we now have in place is far more robust in terms of risk management. And I know, I'm sure Cabinet members agree that the regular updates we have from our heads of service and directors, with risk being on our regular meetings, is a welcome addition, and it means that we're giving a closer monitoring of that So really pleased with the report and this piece of work. It's an excellent piece of work. It means that our practices are far more robust.
Thank you very much. Any other cabinet members wish to comment? If not, then the recommendation has been moved and seconded. Could I ask if you could show if you're in approve of the report, please? Thank you very much. That is agreed. We'll move then to item 11, which is the Building Capital Maintenance Programme for 24-25. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Leader. And I want to place on record my thanks to Martin Ridgway for bringing this report together. Just to remind Cabinet members that on the 6th of March 2024, Council approved the capital maintenance allocation of just over £3.2 million for the authority's building portfolio. And this has been there's been further funding from Welsh Government with just over £500,000 added to that. Which was added specifically for the education asset portfolio. I think members will agree when you look at the appendices that we've really focused again this year on targeting schools and addressing the backlog of maintenance and repair of schools. We do have a lesser fund this year, so what we've done is we've focused on the enveloping of the buildings, particularly roofs. And just to note that we also have a contingency fund for any emergency works of around £600,000. And I'd like to add my thanks to you, Leader, for the commitment that if should any other further funding become available, that this will also be targeted towards any other things which are next on the list. For example, some mechanical and engineering works for schools. So my thanks to you for that addition, should it become available. With that, I'm happy to move the report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Smith, did you wish to come in a second?
Yeah, happy to second, Leader, and I endorse what the Deputy Leader has said in terms of the priority being given to schools in this report. We know the extent of need within our schools. I think it's right that we are prioritising. As we are prioritising now, we will continue to do so. Are we able to do everything we want? Well, of course we're not, but I think with available resources, we're making the most of it. More importantly, we're spending the money where it's needed most, and I think that that is something that we need to be aware of. So I would happily second, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gibbard.
Apologies, I possibly should have flagged this earlier. I've just realised that I'm local authority governor at 2 schools in the appendix, so I don't know if I need to declare a personal interest on that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll record that personal interest. Are there any further comments from Cabinet members? If not, can I just add my thanks to the work that's been done by the officers and by the 2 Cabinet members to bring this programme together. As Councillor Lewis indicated, it's a slightly smaller programme this year than last year, but the aim would be, should further sums become available, that this will be a priority for us in terms of additional investment, and we'll know that probably before the summer. So again, I would hope that this would be an indicative amount to start that programme, which we can add to in the coming months. But again, as has been done, I think we've done as in previous years. We have a substantial schools building programme, and we've just dealt with another item which goes to the heart of the significant investment we're making, over 176 million in our schools replacement programme. But there is capital maintenance that needs to take place not just in schools but across the county's estate, and this is ensuring that we do the priority maintenance this year again. So again, very happy to see this report and the investment going in. So thank you both. And with that, then I'll go to the vote, and I'll ask you to show if you are in favour of the proposed building maintenance capital programme, please. Thank you very much. That is approved. And we'll now go to item 12. I don't know whether Councillor Anthony is going to rejoin us for this item. If somebody can let her know, if that's okay. Yeah, who could? That'd be great. And this is around the additional community budget capital for 24 and 25. Oh, she's had to go. Oh, apologies. I thought it was an interest. That's fine. Okay. So just wait for Councillor Lewis to return for a second. Okay, we'll. Okay, thank you. So FPR 7, additional community budget capital 24-25, Councillor Francis Davis.
Yeah, great pleasure in bringing this forward. I think as a council, we've bucked the trend in Wales, you know, if they are not the United Kingdom, when we look at the amount of money we've invested in children's play, which has been extremely popular. We probably invested more in the last few years than we had probably over about 15 years. And that's been welcome. But the importance of our parks and the importance of people playing in sport. Swansea is a cultural city, it's a sporting city. And yet we've had years and years of austerity budgets from the government where we've seen a lot of our changing rooms in parks are being sort of neglected, not through the fault of this council, but through the fault of finance not being made available. So this £1 million on the first £1 million as capital allocation will start seeing investment in our changing rooms within our parks. There's a lot of interest now with female sport, more women participating, and rightly so, and participating in sport. And I think we need to bring our estate, especially on our changing rooms in our parks, more up to date, and making sure that there's an equality of access for both male and female within our city. So I really welcome this money. And where we can, if we can get match funding from other sporting bodies, I think that would be welcomed as well. Then the other £1 million that we've been made available, Leader, and really appreciated the work they put in through the finance for community budgets. Now, these community budgets, well, people will be able to access as long as they find some match funding for it. So the £1 million could become £1.5 million, £1.25 million, possibly £2 million. You know, sporting bodies have been making money available. Community budgets, people can actually match fund some of this money to provide other schemes, whether it's highway schemes, whether it's whatever the community really feel is the most important thing. And that's why we're here as councillors, cabinet members, to reflect the wishes of our community. And I really do think that this additional community budget and the capital of the £2 million with added money will go a long way to redressing the balance. It won't be enough. We'll always take more, but I see this as a start to a continual rolling programme. So I have great pleasure, Leader, in recommending and moving recommendation 1 and 2 in this report.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davis. Look to Cabinet Member to second. If not, I'm happy to second. Councillor Hopkins.
More than happy to second the report.
Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thanks to you and Councillor Francis Davis for bringing this report. It's actually great to see a really yet another community-focused initiative that stands to benefit all areas across the county, building on the excellent work of the previous £1 million capital funding that we done, and also, as you touched on, Councillor Francis Davis, the extremely popular play area revamp programme. I know it certainly makes me proud to be a part of the cabinet that is putting these forward to improve many areas across the city. So, and as you were aware, Leader, the initial area of bay lighting in West Cross got kick-started thanks to the previous £1 million capital fund. And it proved so popular, it led to us increasing it right around the prom. So I look forward to certainly seeing the wide variety of schemes that come in. So I'm more than happy to support the report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stevens, and thank you, Cabinet members who've spoken. Can I just reflect and obviously thank Councillor Francis Davis and yourself for the work that you both did on the initial play programme. That turned from a small pot into a very big pot through the work you did on match funding and bringing in. But I think what it's achieved is the only council that is guaranteeing to replace all of its play areas that it owns and controls, and also to add into that a specific investment in accessibility play for children who may have mobility or other additional needs. And again, as to my knowledge, we're the only council committing to do that. This, as Councillor Francis Davis said, is another phase of that. We made investment available for additional skate parks and BMX tracks last year. That work is progressing, and we'll shortly come to a conclusion on that. This allows us now to directly invest in changing rooms for sport across the county. And as we discussed at council budget, one of the growth sports has been the explosion of women's sports in football and other competitive sports. But unfortunately, our changing rooms were built decades ago when that need was not there. So it's important that we update our changing rooms to reflect that. And as Councillor Stevens and yourself recognised, we had really successful outcomes from the last capital fund. We already, I believe, have the largest community budgets anywhere in Wales, pushing money directly under the control of elected members so that they can deliver on their community's priorities. This will again give them the opportunity to do that in a way that where the community budget doesn't quite match the needs of the community, they can dip into a further fund to deliver bigger schemes for their communities. So I'm very pleased to see the report here and for us to be able to make these monies available to deliver community priorities, which is what we said we would do when we were re-elected in 2022. So thank you all for your work on that. I'll just ask, are there any other cabinet members who wish to comment? If not, the report has been moved and seconded. Can I ask you all to show if you're in favour of the report, please? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Our next item, item 13, is District Heating Network. Councillor Lewis, please.
Thank you, Leader. And for this report, I'm going to break with tradition and read out the purpose of the report, which I feel sums it up perfectly. So it's the purpose of the report is to gain approval for grant application and acceptance for monies to undertake more detailed design work around the potential for the provision of a district heat network in parallel with Blue Eden developments. I'll go to the recommendations that it is recommended that Cabinet agrees that the Council accepts and utilises a UK Government grant for the development of a detailed programme design for a district heat network and notes the progress made to date for the management of land around SA1, including Tir John, in support of the broader Blue Eden development. So the Council's been awarded a grant of up to £218,300 to develop the heat network, and this will be used to deal with that detailed project development proposal. And the financial implications are outlined. In totality, we'll have £285,000 to carry out this study, and the match funding has been agreed with DST Innovations. I'd just like to say this is a really exciting proposal and an excellent opportunity for us. We did explore district heat networks over a decade ago, and it wasn't viable as a retrofit at that point. So I'm excited to see the detail come back on this for us to give further consideration for the implementation of a district heat network, which I think will be a fantastic addition. If the Blue Eden project is successful and goes ahead fully, this would be an excellent addition to that. So very, very happy to move the recommendations. Happy to take any questions members might have.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Could I ask for a seconder for this report, please?
Happy to formally second the report.
Thank you very much. Are there any cabinet members who wish to comment on the report? If not, I'm sorry, Councillor Francis Davis, yeah.
Yeah, just to welcome this report. I think this has been a long time coming, as Councillor Lewis has said, and but this, the Blue Eden project, if it gets off and takes off, which we all believe it has got the ability to do, and probably be one of the most exciting projects in the United Kingdom and be an exemplar for other people to follow. But this district heating system would make energy available in communities. And when you consider what the last few years have done, where energy companies were sold off the people's bills have been exorbitant, you know, really. And anything that we can do to make sure that energy can get to our communities at a reduced price and a consistent level, I think it would be welcomed by all. So congratulations to everyone, and let's hope this is going to be a great success.
Thank you very much, Councillor Francis Davis. I absolutely agree with all of the comments made. I think at the time, district heating didn't fit for us, but this gives us an opportunity now to create that network. District heating in itself is not a new technology, it's a proven technology. And again, if we're serious about meeting the aims of a new green economy, then, you know, with the onset of a potential new tidal lagoon proposal and delivery of those elements, this is absolutely aligned to that delivery. And of course, outside of that, the challenges that have been highlighted in terms of even if we produce more energy and electricity, it's difficult to transmit that across the current grid with the constraints that it has. Using energy locally, both electricity and other forms of heating locally for local benefit, is going to have to be a way of unlocking some of the green potential and footprint as we move to that transition to greener technologies. So again, fully welcome this report. I think it's an excellent report, and thank Councillor Lewis for bringing it. Are there any comments or questions from any of the Cabinet members before I move to the report? Sorry, to the vote. Therefore, if I could ask you to show if you're in favour of the recommendations on page 171, please. Thank you very much. That is agreed. Okay, next item is the Leisure Partnerships Annual Report. I'll just pause for a second because I know two members have declared prejudice. Okay, thank you very much. So in Councillor Francis Davis's absence, I'll take the report. The report itself is for information. I'd like to first place on record my thanks to the officers, specifically Jamie Rubridge, who for authoring this report and bringing together the information. The key arrangements that are contained within this report are highlighted in paragraph 1.3, which include the Wales National Pool, our leisure centres, which are run by Freedom Leisure, Plantasia Tropical Zoo, the National Waterfront Museum, and other high-level information that is relating to partnerships that we have with the tennis centre and the Swansea Bowls Stadium. And again, it outlines both the financial input and the rewards that we receive as a result of the partnerships that we have with a number of bodies across Swansea. Just to draw your attention to the fact that obviously this report shows further recovery from the period of COVID, when many of these partnerships were in hibernation, and again shows that we continue to move back towards more normal operations. The facilities continue to do relatively well, but of course arrangements for Wales National Pool and others will need to be reviewed in due course as they're coming to the end of their current arrangements, and preparations are already underway to deal with that. So nothing really further to add to the outline of the report, other than to again just reiterate that our thanks to the officers for the work that's done to ensure these partnerships continue to be a successful addition to the landscape of Swansea. With that, I'll just ask you if you could show that you are happy to accept the report, please. Thank you very much. If we could call Councillor Francis Davis and Councillor Smith back in, please. Okay, thank you. Our next item is exclusion of the public. That's on page 205, 267 and 8. You have the detailed explanation from the Chief Legal Officer there around the rationale for going into private session. Are you all happy to agree? Okay, thank you very much. Therefore, we'll pause for a few minutes to allow members of the public